Lisa. I saw the movie. She's asking me if I saw The Iron Lady. She's apparently mad that I said I would rank Meryl Streep's performance fourth. Okay, well, before I play Meryl Streep's, because she had some great comments backstage, too, with her interview, before I play that, I do want to address, because there were a lot of Facebook kind of arguments going back and forth. This is probably the most passionate discussions that I've seen last night and today. And Lisa was involved in one of them. Okay, you didn't have to like the movie, but the performance was brilliant. I voted her fourth, so I liked her more than Glenn Close and Albert Nobbs. Does that count? Lisa's mad as hell. All right, let me make my point, Lisa, okay, please. All right. So, like I said, this moment of Meryl Streep winning and her speech, I thought was the best speech of the night. I thought it was the most heartfelt moment. And just as a movie fan and such a huge, I'm not a huge fan of Meryl Streep, but I mean, I'm certainly not as big as Lisa, but I understand the passion for certain actors and things like that. So I was incredibly happy for people like Lisa that love that moment, to see Meryl Streep. And I'm not one of those people that, have Streep fatigue or whatever, as Meryl Streep addressed backstage. I don't have a problem with her being nominated because I think she's deserved all these nominations that she's been nominated for. So I don't have a problem with it at all. Now, having said that, I want to go back for a few examples here. 1999, the race for 1999, Michael Caine won the Oscar for supporting actor for Cider House Rules. I didn't like the film at all. The one that I thought was most deserving to win that year was Tom Cruise for Magnolia. Clearly a much stronger performance than Michael Caine's in Cider House Rules. But I was incredibly happy, and it's one of my most favorite Oscar memories, that Michael Caine won for the Cider House Rules. I thought he gave such a generous speech, and the fact that he's a legend in the film industry, was absolutely brilliant. So I don't have a problem thinking back in Oscar history with the fact that Tom Cruise lost, because that was such a great moment. So I have this strange divide, in me. And, I know this, anyone who's listened to the show for, more than one or two episodes knows that I'm incredibly passionate about the Oscar choices because I think they represent film history. And I think it's very important that they make the right choices, and especially in Best Picture, for the film that really represents, this is the best of what we can achieve in filmmaking this year. So choices like that, I didn't have a problem with, because I have this thing where, I have the Oscar ceremony itself, which I think is historic in and of itself, and when someone gets up there and wins and is so generous and deeply moved, to actually see someone that deserves it, like one that I've criticized is Jennifer Connelly when she won for A Beautiful Mind. I don't know if you remember that moment, but she came up and she basically read this list of names. I mean, she had been the sure thing most of that season long. And you just didn't sense that she was really passionate about it, that it really meant something to her. So when I see someone go up there and you can see how much this means to them, then that to me, kind of outweighs the fact that I might not think their performance was the best, that year. So if I was an Oscar voter this year, do I think that Meryl Streep gave the best lead performance by an actress this year? No, I do not. Rooney Mara in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is, for me, I think, a performance for the ages. I think it's a performance that is so brave and so, unexpected for what she was able to do in that role. And that, I knew she didn't have a chance at winning. But I'm not going to be upset when I think back in Oscar history, when I think back the fact that Rooney Mara did not win, because, like I said, Meryl Streep delivered this wonderful speech. And just from a film history standpoint, to see this woman who's been around since, the 70s, and she's such an icon, winning her third Oscar, and to see the genuineness of it. I mean, the fact that she herself hasn't become jaded, by the industry, and that she's so deeply moved by it. I mean, that means a whole lot, So, but I would think if I was a voter, I would definitely say Rooney Mara gave the best performance, the bravest, the most unique. She went to so many places in that role that I just didn't feel Meryl Streep went in The Iron Lady. To me, this is my personal opinion, I couldn't see past a lot of the impersonation. There was, because when I look at acting, I think of, there are so many things that you can rely on as an actor. Makeup, wigs, costumes, things that can kind of help you hide yourself in a performance, and they can kind of help you in that way. So things like that, when you're trying to take on, especially a well-known person like a Margaret Thatcher, you have your makeup, you have the hair, you have the voice, you have things that, can help your performance along, where I feel like a Rooney Mara, now obviously, yes, she has the hair and she has all these looks, but I think she goes to much deeper and darker places and more unique and interesting places as an actor that I feel really deserve the Oscar. I mean, I think far and away Rooney Mara should have won. I think that's the deserving choice this year. The second performance I would rank from this list would be Michelle Williams in My Week with Marilyn. I think in any other year she would have won. But see, and that to me was a difference in what she did as opposed to Meryl Streep. I mean, she also was, taking on a role of an iconic character. I mean, who was more iconic than Marilyn Monroe? And to do so, and to be an actor that we didn't expect that she could even take on a role like that, and then she does so brilliantly. It's incredibly. It was incredibly moving to see how well she took on that performance. But she did more than just an impersonation. I mean, she really got to the soul of that character. I mean, it was where I was able to forget that I was watching Michelle Williams, and I really thought I was watching Marilyn Monroe, and I didn't think I was going to be able to go to that place with that actor in there. Charity's disagreeing with me. I didn't buy her as Marilyn. Now I'm making people mad. I'm kind of going back and forth. I have you for a minute, and then I don't. Okay, anyway, but I loved Michelle Williams in that. I think she got to the soul of Marilyn Monroe a lot more than I've seen like any other portrayal, I think, of Marilyn Monroe. I mean, really got to that loneliness, that sadness in that character that I think, really would have deserved it. So that would have been my second choice. Viola Davis would have been my third choice. And again, she didn't have a lot to rely on for that performance. She gave a very raw, emotional performance in The Help, a film that, again, I didn't think I was going to be a huge fan of, but I ended up loving the film, and a lot of that is due to Viola Davis's performance. It was one of the few films that made me actually cry this year. I love that they chose the scene on the Oscar telecast last night to show when she's recalling what happened to her son, because that was the scene that actually made me cry from The Help. And the way that she just has that role, I mean, that's her film. I mean, so again, I would have voted her third, and so I mean, that's my personal opinion. I mean, Meryl Streep, like I said, the problem with The Iron Lady I had is that the film itself lets me down, and these other three performances, I thought all of their films served their performances well, very, very well. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, an incredibly strong film, one of my favorite films of the year. The atmosphere and the mood and the execution gave that performance everything, too. My Week with Marilyn, a fascinating study of this behind the scenes during this week, I think contributed very well to that. The Help, a very brilliant film, well written, well executed, great cast surrounding her. And to have an ensemble like that and Viola Davis being able to stand out among that group, brilliant job. So the problem that I get to Meryl Streep and The Iron Lady is that the film, I think, lets us down. The film, I don't know, it's tough sometimes when you have a biographical character, and then you're trying to cover certain periods and what you leave out and what you include. And so it's hard to distance. I know you're honoring the performance and not the film, like Lisa was saying in the chat, but I know Lisa's saying it right now. I myself can look past a mediocre film to the outstanding performance. I know, I understand that, but I still don't feel that the performance, like I said, I was not able to distance myself. I always was aware that I was watching Meryl Streep impersonating Margaret Thatcher. That was a disconnect that I was not able to get into, whereas opposed to like Michelle Williams, I completely lost myself and by mid-film, I was just completely thinking I was watching Marilyn Monroe, so that was the disconnect for me. So again, this is just me. This is, boy, I'm getting all kinds of, Lisa, here's what I'm saying. Okay. But Charity says Michelle should have studied harder. I know. But see, this is the difficulty, and I would put Glenn Close fifth, by the way, because the film completely lets us down, I believe, and the performance just underwhelmed me. I was just expecting a whole lot more, and I think that's really a failure of the movie, from that. So that's why I would vote her fifth. But like I said, I think, and is Kara saying that in the chat, a truly good performance should uplift a bad movie too. Yeah, exactly. I think you can't totally isolate a great performance from its movie. I mean, the movie has to, the film itself and its story has to at least be up to that level. I mean, you can't be the one person in the floating ship that's, I'm trying to look for a good analogy, but you can't be the one person that's, so brilliant, but everybody else is sucking. You're only as good as the rest of your team. They say that in work, in your corporate office environments and things like that all the time, that you're only as good as your least person amongst you. So, I mean, when you have something like A Girl with a Dragon Tattoo where everybody's working at the top of their game and they are contributing to something that is truly great, that's going to make that performance even better, and you can't completely distance that from itself. So, but I was going to say that's the difficulty of, and people have argued over the years of, trying to have competitions for art. George Clooney gave the best thing. He said, the best way to ever compare actors and art is all of us should play the same role. All of us should play Batman and then say which one's the best. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, how do you compare Rooney Mara to Meryl Streep? I mean, one actor has been around and has 17 Oscar nominations, and how do you compare Lisbeth Salander with Margaret Thatcher, with Marilyn Monroe? I mean, how do you compare these performances? I mean, that's what's the difficulty of comparing art, and why a lot of people think, awards shows and Oscars and things like that are, not classy and really don't have a place in art. But wait a minute, someone mentioned boobs. Lisa, her boobs were C. How did we get into a boobs discussion? Amy's trying to wrap up my speech. Yeah, see, I would not be good on Oscar stage because if they put that 45 seconds on me, I'd say, hey, I'm staying up on the stage. So she wore clothing to accentuate. Are we talking about, Marilyn, okay. Jeez. See, look at all you. I mean, the women are talking about her boobs. It's like I didn't need Marilyn Monroe-sized boobs to get into that performance. So anyway, all right, well, I'll wrap it up. I think I made my point. But the one thing that I will say is I love all of your arguments for this. I love all the passion that was going on last night. I mean, I loved everybody that was mad that Viola Davis didn't win. I loved how you were being passionate about that, and I loved Lisa and everybody that absolutely loved Meryl Streep. I think that's great to argue for your passion, because think of me last year when I'm still not over the fact that The King's Speech won Best Picture over The Social Network, because I have a very strong connection to The Social Network. That was my favorite film of the year, and I think it's a film for the ages, and The King's Speech is a step backwards in film, so I love that everybody's passionate for their film. I mean, I think even Josh with Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, I love that he loves that movie. I'll give him shit about it, but I love that he loves it. I love that all of you have that kind of connection. I mean, I think more of us should have those kind of connections to movies and actors and things like that, so I think that's great. And that's why, even though I would not vote Meryl Streep the best performance by an actress this past year, I am overjoyed for people like Lisa that are so happy that she won. I think that's great. That makes me very happy, even though the one that I wanted to win, didn't win and had no chance of winning. I'm happy for all of you who get, those kinds of things. So